There you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you see my picture of me and hear me?
I can see your picture and I can hear you. It's great.
Cool. You look good. Your lighting's so good, and I
Oh, thank you.
it was just
I'm
awkward. It's awkward to turn the phone, so I had to like set it up so that it made the page look clear. So I'm sharing a picture of myself in lieu of
okay.
actually showing myself.
That's good. I'll just pretend that I'm talking to you. Well, I am talking to you, but I'm talking to your image.
Yeah. See, I can.
So I started off tonight with a question. I'm just curious what you think. Is there anything that you're nostalgic about?
Phew, God. I mean, it's hard to think of like a really specific thing, but I definitely get nostalgic for different periods of my life that I know are kind
Mm-hmm.
of gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm gonna probably see my closest childhood friend in the next week. He still lives in New York, which we used to live in. We used to live there together,
Mm-hmm.
but he's gonna be out in Los Angeles, and we're gonna hang out. And I get nostalgic for like, the late '90s and early 2000s when the two of us lived in New York and just would drink beer and skateboard and like, just had such a different kind of lifestyle. Uh,
Right.
yeah.
Sometimes I try to remember that I'll probably be nostalgic for this time at some point too. So.
No, totally. Yeah, and there's a lot of things that I kind of prefer about my life these days, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah. I was just curious about that. And just for David Fenster is a filmmaker and artist. And do you recall how we met?
Yeah, I do. I was the artist in residence at Museum of Contemporary Art in Tucson, and you were working there. I forget what like your official title was, but you made me feel really welcome, and you were kind of the first person there to, yeah, I don't know, just to reach out, and we started talking, and I think we realized we had a lot in common. And I just remember at the end of the residency saying like, I really like you, and I really enjoy our conversations. And I was about to move to Tucson, and I was like, I remember me saying, can we be friends? But I probably didn't say that exactly, but
I think you psychically said it because
yeah.
I heard it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I just really appreciate when people are just straightforward and like say, I want to be friends and I want to get to know you and we should hang out and like mean it, you know? And it doesn't happen that often. So I was really happy about it. And also too, I just remember when I first saw you, I just thought, I felt like, oh, I feel like I know this person. And it wasn't like I know this person because they remind me of someone else. It was more like, oh, I feel like I see this person and I know them and we just got to hang out. So I
and
think
we
we both
did,
felt the
and
same.
it's
And we
like
do.
2 years later, and you're definitely one of the things I most appreciate about Tucson is getting to hang out with you and be friends with you, and with Kid now too, who I met through you, obviously.
Yeah.
And yeah, and well, talk about nostalgia. I'm nostalgic about like going to the movie theater in general, which I haven't been to in 2 years,
Right.
and especially like our like movie nights that we would have where we'd go to the loft and then like go to the, what's it called, the Red Garter, that bar next door.
The Red Garden next door. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and have like a drink and
Yeah.
chat and talk about whatever we just saw. I really miss that, but hopefully that part of life will come back for the two of us again.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, we see each other from time to time, but yeah, it is a little different now. There's like it's like everyone I know is a little hesitant or not sure like what they feel safe about. So I completely get that. So
Yeah,
I'm going to turn my camera now so that
yeah.
I can
Should
join
we
your drawing.
should we
And
start doodling?
yeah, we can start doodling. And just letting people know in the audience, if you are new to Doodle with me, this is just a 30-minute program where you can join David and I as we just chat about whatever and draw whatever. The whatever is the most important part, which is that we are not trying to do anything productive.
Yeah.
And that it is a time for us to just kind of make without aim. So that said, I got a little teacher leader on you. I apologize, but next 30 minutes, please join us. Listen, draw, whatever you like to do. I'm going to get started. And thanks for coming, everybody.
So what are you and thanks for having me. It's cool to do
Of
this with
course.
you. What
Oh yeah, I've been meaning to for a while.
what are you nostalgic about?
Oh my gosh. It's a funny thing I brought it up, and now I'm trying to think why I brought it up.
I know maybe why you brought it up.
Oh, okay, let me know. Well,
Weren't
why
we
did I
gonna
do it?
we almost started talking about the Beatles
Oh,
documentary.
that's what it was. That was the Beatles documentary. Yeah, the Beatles documentary, I kind of am not a necessarily like a giant fan of the Beatles. I grew up with hearing the Beatles, and it was very much about a time period that I kind of was growing up, and I remember things happening at that time, and so it's really connected to me to at that time. Let's see if I need more light. So there was a little bit of that, and then also too, like, why why are they why are they so why are we looking at them now? What are we learning now? And the thing that I've been getting, which is different than a lot of the musicians that I know, is that 8 hours of film, of just looking at film and hanging out with people, is a really interesting thing, you know. And so, in fact, I thought I'd be nostalgic, but I think because of the fact that the documentary is so long and there's a lot of downtime and it's very, what is that, mise en scène or whatever, because of that, I actually don't feel nostalgic. I feel like I'm present with people in that lived moment. And now and then I remember, oh, you know, two of them are dead, or that kind of thing. But it really is about a creative process that they go through for me. And it's been really about, for me, this idea of that sometimes I think nostalgia kind of puts something away neatly in a drawer.
Mm.
And what I love about the format of something just taking so long to kind of unfold is that you can't put it away neatly, because there's a lot of nuance that you start to get when you spend that much time looking at basically five people's faces, although there's more than that. So it's interesting, you know. It's I'm going to watch the end of it tonight.
You've seen the 7 hours of it?
I've seen the two I've seen the part two, and I know it's an 8 hour, it's 8 hours, and we've looked at and they're 3 hours each. So we've looked at over like 7 hours. Yeah, we've looked at 7 hours of footage. So maybe it won't be 3 hours tonight. Anyway, in the long run, I'm kind of can't wait for it to be resolved. Like,
Yeah.
just like end already. And then there's a part of me too that's kind of like, even though I know how things turn out, I'm still curious, you know.
Yeah, it's funny I was wondering the same thing. Like I haven't seen that one yet. I saw like 10 minutes of it.
Yeah.
But I watched the Paul McCartney Rick Rubin one, which I really loved. It's long. It's not 8 hours, but it's like 3 or 4 hours. And it's really cool. It's like all black and white, and it's just like the two of them talking in a studio. But then when Paul McCartney talks about stuff, it'll go like into the archival footage, and a lot of that's color, so it makes the past feel like more vivid than the present in a weird way. It like inverts it. Like he talks about going to like they're seeing like Jimi Hendrix cover one of their songs, and then it like goes to that footage, and that footage is in color, and it's really interesting.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm curious too, like what so I really liked that, and I was wondering the same thing, like why is all this stuff, is it just because like the archival materials available now, or is like why is all this stuff coming out? But yeah, what did like the music people, you know, think? Because it does seem like they would have a different take on all of it.
What I've heard, and I mean, you know, other people can speak better to this, like Kid, is I think that they get really into the dynamics that happen in a band, and how kind of the commonality they might have with a band that's like either splitting up, or like the troubles that go on between the different musicians and the different directions they are going, you know, with their own music as opposed to the music they have together. And I think
Yeah.
seems to me they talk a lot about the creative process and how it reminds them of their own creative process, maybe. But uh and then I think also too, Yoko Ono is really interesting because, you know, people are now recognizing that basically there was a smear campaign against Yoko Ono during that time. And some people link that to just like the politics in terms of uh, Western, you know, U.S. at war with Vietnam, and, you know,
Yeah.
but also just in general, you know, I also saw the dynamic between like the women and the men felt very dated, but then when you see the women talking together, I'm kind of like, oh, what are they talking about? You know, it's almost like something that isn't the focus, but it becomes a focus because you start to get curious about uh, a newer understanding of like what women were going through during that time,
Yeah.
and also what kind of how those roles kind of shifted. I mean, they're obviously in love. That's kind of an interesting part. And there's definitely some parts where you're just like, oh my God, they're just smacked out.
Yeah. Right.
Like, not, you know.
Yeah. I definitely, I want to watch it. It was weird too. I was like put off at first because the way they restored the footage, it's so clean.
It's super clean.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and there's like no film grain on it or anything. But then I actually heard an interview with Peter Jackson, and he was saying like he wanted it, like his dream, if he could ever have a time machine, would be to go back to a Beatles like recording session. And he basically like got to realize his dream when he was asked to make this film and like go through all of this material.
Yeah.
And so he basically said exactly what you were saying. Like he wanted people to not feel like this nostalgic kind of mediated through time version of a Beatles recording session. He wanted people to feel like they were there, and that's why he's so like aggressively restored the footage.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was interesting to hear that it seemed to work for you in that way, and also the fact that like yeah,
Well, it's like the technology doesn't get in the way. I mean, it will probably in the future when that technology or the technology we're using now gets dated.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, yeah, it keeps it from being nostalgic. Like I definitely with the Todd Haynes Velvet Underground, which was kind of more my kind of thing,
yeah,
that felt very nostalgic for me. And I'm always like wary of nostalgia because I'm like, you know, what am I learning from it? but
yeah,
but yeah, I feel like it works. I feel like it works, and I think it's you kind of get the feeling of you get. I mean, he allows you to get bored or antsy or frustrated, and I mean, I came out of the first part like super frustrated and kind of like, but going back, and then you start to realize, oh, well, the timing and the way that the editing is happening is so that you go through the same things perhaps they go through, or
right,
maybe yeah, I don't know.
right.
But it's just interesting. And I know as as someone who makes documentary films, do you see yourself as making documentary films, or do you just see yourself as making film?
Yeah, I mean, these days I do feel like I mostly do documentary films. I mean, you know, my day job is I work for PBS, and then seems like even the stuff I do for myself is maybe it's more of a kind of experimental version of documentary, but it's definitely nonfiction.
Yeah.
And you know, but in the past I've done animation and fiction. I did 2 fiction films. Yeah, I hope I always kind of make different kinds of films. Also, like fiction films are really hard to make on a shoestring. I feel like, or you know, if you
Oh
don't have any
yeah,
money,
yeah.
you need like an intense amount of concentrated time, which I don't have anymore. So I feel like the
Right.
nonfiction stuff I make on the side is kind of work that um, I can do like piecemeal and do like a couple days a month or whatever. It might take 4 years to finish, but but it's like doable. Whereas like to carve out 3 weeks where all I do is like shoot this film and then leading up to it, it can be really intense. So yeah, it's just harder to
Yeah.
do fiction stuff these days, but I'd love to get back to it.
Yeah,
What,
no, I think about that too. I also think it's so much easier to work kind of in like a in the moment vein, and the storytelling. Like there's different like for storytelling, there's kind of an expectation now that you're supposed to, for me at least, I worry about that the expectation is that somehow I'm taking someone to another reality where, you know, and that you have to control the reality to tell the story, you know, like your setting and all the elements need to be controlled more, which is what makes it expensive maybe. But like now I'm starting to go, and it's been a little confusing for me, but now I'm starting to go, well, in some ways, every time I post on Instagram, I'm telling a story about myself. And
yeah,
I'm telling a story in some ways to people who haven't seen or don't know me by just what I focus on or what I put my attention on. And so I start to kind of feel like, oh yeah, though I'm doing it. But
but do
I
you
might
ever
just be
like,
talking like, huh?
do you write scripts or anything like that? Do you, because I know you studied film, right, and you've made some films.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I was in film school, I wrote scripts, and I definitely worked on films, and I made some films. And yeah, I and they were more like fictional, but I
Yeah,
did kind of get into the idea that, you know, that you work fictionally, and then you let kind of reality, you allow for improvisation to come in and kind of break it up so that reality pours in too. Like
yeah,
my favorite, what I ended up realizing is how I watch film is kind of like how is the kind of stuff I like, which is um I like when the film gets detoured, the story gets detoured, and you kind of are just like in the setting. Like sometimes I'll watch really bad films because in bad films my mind is freer to start to look at like the sets or more incidental things like you know, locations or things in the background. You know, like I,
totally.
I just watched a James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, and I was listening to the Nancy Sinatra song, and I thought, oh, I really got to check out that song. I mean that film, but the song took me there, you know,
Yeah.
and and speaking of nostalgia, that was nostalgic for me because in some ways I just thought like, you know, to be a man was to be Sean Connery, you know, like he,
Yeah,
you know, that was like what I thought it was about. And it is kind of wooden now, of course. But the thing was that was interesting to me was I was watching it and I was like, oh wow, look at all the furniture and the like headquarters of the Japanese um, corporation they're talking to, or like it was like 60s corporate furniture and sets that were really cool, and like just the paper walls were and I started realizing when I was younger, I went, the movie theater was called Lamar Theater, and I would go down there, and I think it was like about $5 to just go to a movie, and we usually snuck into other ones too, so we'd see more than one movie. And I that's how I traveled. I basically could travel to different countries just by watching James Bond, you know. um
yeah.
I
Did
mean,
you did
yeah.
you ever see, like when you were maybe a little later, like Antonioni movies?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Because
love
I
on.
feel like that what you're talking about, he kind of, I don't know, it was the first filmmaker I saw doing that intentionally, like some of the
Yeah,
stuff you're talking about.
yeah,
Um, Maybe not the sort of travelogue thing, although there's some kind of travel in his films too, but just that idea of like the background becomes the foreground, or the characters will leave the scene, but it'll
yeah,
stay on this scene for a little while longer, and you'll just see like the bartender doing something
yeah.
or whatever, you know, all that stuff. But that was
I
definitely like that seeing those films was kind of revelatory for me in
yeah.
my 20s, because yeah, I think I would start to watch things the way you're talking about.
I,
But
yeah,
he
because
was
people,
like doing that on purpose or something.
because people would say, "Oh, pay attention to this," and I'd always be like, "Okay, I'm going to pay attention to this," but then my mind would drift a little, and I'd want to pay attention to other things.
Yeah.
And so in film, like when they do that, I feel like that it allows me to pay attention in other sorts of ways. Like I have more freedom, or the illusion I have more freedom.
Yeah.
Like Tati films are like that too. Where you will see other things happening in the background. Or
Yeah.
I mean, I think those are orchestrated like a Mad Magazine kind of like those little gutter cartoons that used to be in the Mad magazines, but it's still kind of like this great, um, uh, yeah, it gives me a sense of freedom. And I like Pasolini in a different sort of way. And like that Pasolini, everything it felt artificial, but because he kind of had the whole neorealism using actors that, he would find, I guess might be the word for it.
Yeah.
But that also, I liked that there was like a little bit of that it wasn't all orchestrated, that even the settings sometimes were like these amazing settings, and then the costumes might feel a little like fake or dated, but you could still feel like they were out there camping to make the film a little
Yeah.
bit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Totally. Well, I think
Yeah.
too now is like we're in like the golden age of the kind of hybrid type of film which is something I've always been interested in, is like some stuff is sort of fictional and some nonfiction, and those things are kind of blended together. And yeah, that was definitely like how I would approach fiction, was trying to like you were talking about, get as much reality in there as possible, or things that I don't know. I mean, my scripts would be like 20 pages for a 80-minute movie, just to try to. I mean, that was probably just because I didn't know what I was doing, but
But
also
that
to try to leave space for discoveries, or
I remember seeing, yeah, I remember the first film of yours I saw, and there was a shot, and I kind of remember it like I think of it as like a pillow shot. There were other things going on in the narrative. I'm wondering if this was the film you did with Asher Hart. But and then at some point it stops, and it's just like a brook or water running in a stream. And I don't know which one it is, but I remember that moment and thinking to myself, oh yeah, this guy's holding on this shot for a lot longer than maybe than usual. But what it did was gave me time to digest and take in everything else that was happening. Kind of like a little, Ozu does that a lot too, but it's kind of like, I just remember thinking like, oh, I like this. There's a certain dignity to letting people just have a moment to like breathe in a film, to not, you know, to not constantly be pushing the story to the point where we forget that we're actually looking at like reality being recorded. So
yeah.
it's cool.
It's like
And what kind?
it's like a fine line between trying to like find that space and boring the hell out of people, or like
Yeah,
it's always like, I mean, I'm sure it's different for every person where that line is, but yeah, like giving the viewer freedom, but also, I don't know, it's like the idea of like trying to meet them halfway, where if you
yeah,
get everything, it's no fun, and it's really irritating. But if you don't get enough, it's equally frustrating in a way, like the artist is asking you to do too much or something.
when did you first pick up a camera?
I mean, I think when I was little, we did videos and stuff. A friend of mine's parents had a video camera, but
Mm.
not really till college.
But when you did those videos because I did videos with my friends,
Yeah,
and for
yeah.
some
But
reason
those,
I
do those
thought you
even
may have
count?
been the same person, huh?
Yeah, they don't. Do those, I mean, I think for some people those count as like real movies, but in my case, I feel like every kid did that if they had access to a video camera, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah,
For yours, like legit films, though.
we thought they were legit films, so
Yeah.
they were for the three or four of us that made them. I mean, we basically made up our own Star Trek episodes on the spot, using my friend's model of the Enterprise. We'd blow it up with a firecracker, you know.
Do you
We
remember
got,
the storyline?
I remember, no. I remember we used my friend's mother's uh, garment bag. It was kind of like um, it was it had like piping, so it could hold probably about 20 dresses in it, and it had a hanger in it and a zipper up and down the front.
Yeah.
And we used that as a transporter. So what we would do is we had it down on the ground, and then we'd take a rope and we'd hoist it into a tree, and then one of us would get in, and then we would pull it up into the tree, and that was our transporter. But we completely wrecked it, and she got really mad. So I just remember stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not it wasn't really about the great film. I mean, I did a couple films in film school. I actually did 3 camera shooting with he was a Czech director, Jerzy Kosinski. Oh God, what was his name? He was great. Anyway, you know, he taught me how to do a 3 camera setup and live editing, which I loved because I love the spontaneity of that. You know.
But did you? It seems like you left filmmaking for other, well, performance, right? That was kind of, was that the first thing you moved into after studying film, or was it more like illustration, or what was
Oh,
your?
yeah. Thanks for asking.
And I'm curious, like, why you moved away from film after studying it, or
Oh,
if you're
oh,
interested in it.
I
But
can tell
both,
you
yeah,
why.
yeah.
Um, well, I went into school for not filmmaking, but film criticism and theory.
Oh wow.
And that was because I had a teacher when I was at UC Santa Cruz who went to who told me you should go to UCLA. You know, she was really a champion for me in terms of writing about film. She also taught me about German expressionist film in an art history class, and I just thought she was great. And even though she wasn't teaching there, I took her advice to go. And I was an art major, but I was a film minor. And so when I went there, I got my master's in film theory and history. But I also, part of the program was to take these other, you know, to actually make stuff and to take production. As a theoretician, you're supposed to take, you know, production classes. So, and I liked doing it a lot. I think that's a really good question. And I never really seriously asked myself that. I ended up working on a lot of films for AFI right after getting out of school. I decided not to go on to become a professor and get my doctorate because and so I started to go, well, maybe I'll just break into film. And I worked on a lot of smaller films and also AFI films. And yeah, something didn't appeal to me. I
Yeah, because
think,
I've tried to leave it and I can't.
yeah, I think what didn't appeal to me was the feeling that I didn't have. I think it was the way the sets were run. Uh,
Yeah.
it didn't feel as collaborative as I had hoped. I mean, I was just what was called a prop slave. So,
Hmm.
but even there, even that tells you a little bit about how how people were setting stuff up, you know, because there was the prop master and the prop slave, and I think it took too long to make things. I think I had a
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
impatience. And then I also had so many filmmaker friends that were just so busy trying to fundraise. I mean, it turns out to be the same thing that kind of got me disinterested in the museum field. Just
Just asking people for money all the
the
time.
constant asking people for money, the constant stopping and starting, and that, you know, I'm my major. I mean, what I focused on in as a graduate was I focused on exploitation film from the 60s and 70s. I was really interested in that, not because of as much about exploitation, but I just really I was really enamored in that kind of way that people could just make things happen quickly and on the ground, you know, that there was a sense of people kind of shooting on the go. And I mean, pornography used to be that way too. People would just rent a hotel room, shoot what they needed to shoot and get out before they were arrested, you know. So it's kind of like, I like the guerrilla style kind of shoot, you know, the guerrilla style
Yeah.
production. And I like that camaraderie. And I got tired of the the fact that it took so long for people just to get their visions out there, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm
So
always jealous of my friends who are musicians, because it seems like such a just like a direct form of expression. And yeah, I get frustrated with some of the things you're talking about. Definitely, like the raising funds, or the, I mean, it just can take years to make something. And
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, like, I don't know, it's just,
But I also know that, yeah, to see it, you also have a certain amount of, you have to have a lot of discipline and a lot of kind of grit and resilience and a lot of trust and faith. And sometimes I don't have it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Me neither. I don't,
But at the same time, I hope to find something that will do that for me. You know, I mean, uh, it's, you know, I'm like I'm, you know, kind of a creature of whim a lot. So, but you know, that all said, um, I am glad that people do stick with things and do make stuff and do go through all that, because great stuff is made, and I've had great experiences watching films because of it, you know.
but
Um,
if you studied like theory and criticism, do you ever want to write a book, or have you written essays and things like that, like about film?
I used to, yeah, definitely for school I did, and I used to write art reviews a lot. Um, you know, I've been watching Fran Lebowitz a lot on YouTube, and I
Hmm.
think I've discovered I'm similar to her in that uh, I just sometimes would rather talk and have my opinions that way and get
Yeah,
that out than actually uh, to sit down and actually write a book is a lot harder. And
yeah,
again, you have to have a certain faith that it's worth it. Um, you know, and so I think I think it's laziness, to be honest. And I'm trying to be proud of it. I'm trying to say, you know, the idea of being productive is a very Western industrialist kind of idea, that every
yeah,
moment needs to be meaningful, and perhaps just hanging out for and being with people and dedicating myself to those relationships in the long run is meaningful enough for me. So I I feel that, but I also feel like I want to, of course, make work and have some kind of legacy. So, do you ever think about
yeah,
legacy and all that kind of stuff?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm with you. I think a lot of these cultural ideas that are dominant are kind of bogus, but and even if I intellectually disagree with them, I still can't help but like feel guilty or lazy or something if I'm not like doing certain
Yeah.
things. But yeah, I think of legacy. It's a weird, I mean, it all goes away eventually, no matter, even I guess Shakespeare is gonna disappear at some point, right?
Well,
Um,
there's a Cohen brother now making a film, so
oh, what do you mean?
there's the new Cohen brothers version of Joel Cohen, I think, is
Oh yeah,
making
yeah, no,
the.
oh yeah, Macbeth, yeah, yeah, totally. No, I don't think he's gonna disappear anytime soon, but
Oh, okay.
just this idea that like what's like, I don't know, it's like everything eventually will disappear in a long enough timeline. So
Right.
so the idea of the legacy is like, it's just like an idea of people that are alive, and then I don't know, I mean, I guess I don't know what's on the other side, so I don't know, does it matter what I mean, I'm glad that people have left all this amazing stuff
Yeah.
that we can be inspired by. And
Yeah. Me too.
but I don't
Me
know
too.
if yeah, of course I want to be like make things that move people or that open people up to things. But but yeah, I don't know. It gets weird when I start to think about like, yeah, when I die, what am I going to leave behind, and what does that mean, or will I be completely forgotten? Which is like,
Yeah.
good possibility.
But at the same time, it's not really worth it to think about because it doesn't really help you do anything. It's really more like an ego thing, maybe, huh? I don't know. I do see that sometimes with the Beatles too. They're kind of grappling with the story they're telling about their lives as they're being filmed. There's a kind of self-consciousness there that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
They know their own myth in a way, and I just
yeah.
find that kind of that that's weird. That's kind of weird, but I understand it too. So
Well, Eileen, I lived in Marfa. That whole town is like one person's legacy who was also very like conscious of their own legacy.
yeah, and I mean, someone like David Bowie, who that last album, it really seems like he was very conscious of like leaving it as a note to the rest of the world about his perspective, and so I do feel like, wow, that's amazing to do it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that just wants to go, I made what I made, and that's fine. And if someone connects with it, great. But that also nowadays, it's like connecting with people it's either like you have to connect with, thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, or then it really isn't meaningful. And so I'm like, well, if that's how like I'm supposed to get my work out, there's just I can't be. I basically will become like a publicist and not an artist. So
Yeah.
I go back and forth. Anyway, I feel like I'm kvetching. I apologize.
No, please. You never know what's going to come out when you start doodling.
Right. That's right. I mean, that is the thing about doodling that I've really enjoyed.
But
Which
this is the stuff we actually talk about a lot too. So I think
yeah, it
it's
is
kind
true.
of good.
I'm glad that you feel comfortable with me talking about it, because sometimes people don't talk about things that trouble them, and that makes me kind of feel like, am I just mentally ill? I don't know.
No, I don't know. I mean, everyone I know talks about the stuff we're talking about and
Oh, okay.
struggles with it, and it's like, to me, the grass is always greener thing is
Yeah.
always true, and
Yeah.
and I know that because sometimes you always get to the other side and it's not what you expect it to be, and it's disappointing, or that's something I've been wrestling with a lot now, is like I know sometimes when you get what you want, it never like fills you up in the way that you want it to. It never feels like you expect it's going to feel.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn that lesson at some point in your life,
Yeah.
usually when you're younger. And I mean, to me, that seems like why really like celebrities can struggle so much, is like, yeah, everybody's telling you you got everything that you want, you're rich, you're famous. And then if you still feel unhappy, or like there's like some void in you, then where do you go from there? It's like, and I don't know, I wrestle with like knowing that's true and still like really wanting certain things, and even though I know they're not gonna do what I want them to do, but I can't help but like want them, or feel like maybe
Yeah.
I'm supposed to want them, and so I do, or I don't know. That's like a weird thing.
Well, that's a big thing that happened to me moving to Tucson, is I kind of came face to face with my own ambition, because I really couldn't fill the ambitions I have in Tucson,
Yeah.
So it kind of became more about, well, what I'm here for other reasons then,
Yeah.
and my reasons aren't here to pursue whatever I thought my identity was before, and that maybe I need to have another identity of some sort. So
Where are you at with that whole thing?
well, where I'm at with that now is I want to find a way to work and be happy working, so that the work sustains me, that the work feels meaningful, that I'm, and that's really, that whether or not the work is successful or not for other people, that I make a ton of money off of it, that people look at me and think he's great. None of that's as important. It's just finding a way to work that makes myself satisfied, and I see the things in the world that I feel are missing. So that's kind of like, I do still see things that are missing in the world. And so that makes me feel like I want to add to it, you know?
Yeah.
And that said, first of all, big ego trip to think that it matters what I add. But then again, why not? Why not have that ego trip? You know what I mean? You know, I do. And so I just want to find a way of working that will sustain me and sustain my interest um, and give me an identity, because I had a different identity before moving here. So,
What was your identity?
oh, I was a museum worker. I thought I was a cool, glamorous museum worker.
Yeah.
And even though I was an artist museum worker, which was super special. But you know, what I found was the museum really doesn't care to have an artist's perspective, you know, in the job. They would much rather have artists come and go and not disturb an otherwise bureaucratic system. And I might be sounding, you know, bitter. I hope it doesn't sound like that. I love museums and I love objects and I love the intellectual stimulation, and it really sustained me. But it also distracted me from some of the things that I wanted to pursue as an artist. And a lot of it was just a mindset that I wanted to be able to engage in more that I wasn't able to engage anymore in the job, you know? You
Yeah.
know, it's hard to work a day job and then also be an artist. And I think my day job ended up taking over.
Yeah, I'm definitely been learning that in the last few years, you know. It's like the
Yeah.
first time I haven't freelanced and done all that. It's
Yeah.
interesting though that you have all these kind of things going on, because I don't know, it's not like I never get the sense from you when we hang out or talk that you're like at all bitter, or I don't know. It's definitely, I don't know. That's not the vibe I get. Not, and there's
Oh,
definitely
good.
like an openness and not like a certain type of, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, that ambition that you're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
If but you feel like that was like a conscious change you wanted to make, or like?
No, it was a change I kind of got unconsciously forced into, but in the long run, it just didn't work out. And and there were other aspects of my personality that needed to be acknowledged, and yeah, it just kind of had its time, and I think it ended outside of. It ended in the way that it needed to end, as far as I
Yeah.
understand. Anyway,
Yeah.
this sounds. Now I'm getting self-conscious about. I'm actually laying on a couch right now, and you're in a chair, and you've got a pipe, and I have a notebook. um, uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm good. I mean, I'm kind of like I seem to face uncertainty all the time, and in terms of like the world and what I'm doing. But I'm teaching, and I'm, you know, and this has been a great kind of this has been a great thing for me this last year. So that's been good.
The teaching.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to? Do you think about the new year in any sort of way?
Yeah, definitely. You know, you kind of can't help but think of it as like a time to. I've been doing a lot of like reassessment of some of the things we're talking about, but you know, like what, you know, I just had you know, we had our daughter like a year ago.
Yeah, right.
Seems like a long time, but it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And just trying to figure out like, yeah, what's the next like version of myself, or my idea of who I am look like, or you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I haven't gotten anywhere with that question. Like what's the next version? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. Laura and I was joking about like, I don't know, today we were saying let's just become like, you know, do like earth friendly landscaping or something, you know, like just toying with all these possible future careers or
Yeah.
something, but that we would probably never do, you know. Um but yeah, I think it's always just like some kind of internal shift that you make, but then there's a lot of different ways to kind of make that happen. But yeah, definitely been thinking a lot about it, and like what in the next year, yeah, I don't know how to transform, or do we ever even like transform? Do we just sort of uh, change the way we accept things or like think about things? Or I don't know. I wonder, like, do we actually change in any kind of real way? Are we always the kind of same person, but we just um, like something shifts in our understanding of who we are, but there's no
Yeah.
actual like transformation that ever occurs, really?
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Sounds good to me.
But
I
I
want
don't
to
know how
believe
to,
it.
I want this like, big shift to happen in this next
Yeah,
year. I just don't know how to, well, I
I
have
think it.
some ideas about how to bring it about, but
Oh, good. Well, also too, I think those things. That's what kind of movies promise. They promise that it's going to happen in an hour and a half to 2 hours, and maybe we don't even see the plot unravel as we're doing it. I think
yeah, that's
sometimes in
my sort of
retrospect.
biggest beef with the kind of 3 act narrative sort of thing, is this, or this sort of hero's journey is like that. It makes it seem, uh, yeah, I mean, in 90 minutes, someone completely shifts. There's been this major transformation, and I do think there are these like shifts that happen, but it makes it seem easy or something, or like,
Yeah,
or like it
yeah. I
should
have.
be a quick process and not like a 15-year process or something.
I mean, if it was instant, kind of like with the documentary I'm watching. I mean, if it was instant, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't culminate. It wouldn't carry along kind of the residue of you know, of the hours spent kind of waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, yeah,
And all the other things that happen, and all the other potential directions it could have gone. And so, in some ways, I do believe that in the long run, time will tell. Um,
I'm very actually optimistic about these psychedelic therapies. I think that's gonna like cause a huge shift culturally, and I do think that's the only thing I've ever experienced that does cause like a crazy shift basically overnight.
mhm, mhm.
And the fact that it's becoming like more accepted and slowly being legalized everywhere. um Mushrooms or whatever the different therapies are, that's the kind of
Yeah,
the one I'm most familiar with. But
yeah,
I think that could have the potential to really like transform people's lives and transform the culture in a
yeah.
way that nothing else. It's hard to imagine anything else having such like an immediate dramatic effect.
Right. Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I went to Terence McKenna lectures that were in Santa Monica, I think, and
Well,
he
like
was.
live Terrence McKenna
Yeah,
lectures,
yeah.
so
and
great.
and he had a whole thing, a theory of history, and his theory of history was that you know that the different drugs, the different chemicals, changed consciousness in different periods of history. And so there's this kind of ebb and flow that human history goes through, that has a lot to do with um, the development and acceptance of uh, different kinds of psychoactive drugs at different times. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I would think, didn't he kind of believe or in the theory or create the theory that of the, what is it, the like wasted ape theory or something, where like early humans like came across psilocybin or whatever mushrooms and took them, and that's like where language came from. And I don't know, I
and
feel like a lot of people have kind of poo-pooed that theory, but
he
it,
did what the lecture I saw is he talked about how the the shifting of the body, and I might be conflating what he said with something else I read. So, folks, I am no expert on this, but
no one's tuning in here for accurate information
I
about
think they are.
anything.
That's just the last vestiges of academic in me. Is like, oh, where are my sources? But anyway, actually, before I go into not having primary sources to cite, I actually have to end. We're done with our time.
Oh yeah, it looks like we actually went
We
quite
went
long.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much, David. And we could talk forever, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, it
Um,
was super fun. I'm excited to even look at these drawings. I don't even know what they are.
yeah, great. Wow. I love that you used
I'm
that.
glad we ended on psychedelics because God.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how doodles tend to can have a very psychedelic quality to them. And I think that's so interesting. Yeah. So folks who've joined us a little later in the game, this is called Doodle with Me. It's 30 minutes of idle chat and aimless drawing, and it's a non-productive space where we can all be together alone. So I am glad that you tuned in. I hope that you feel company this evening if you are alone, and if you're with other people, I hope you enjoy that time with them. So on that note, thank you very much for coming, both David and tonight's studio audience. And you can also see my little mannequin friend in the back here. Just noticed she was present. But our next Friday, New Year's Eve, will be Mary Beth Egan. Mary Beth was the first person who was on Doodle with me when I first started. So it is a great return to get back together with Mary Beth. And David, thank you so much. I'm so glad we live in the same town.
Me too. I'm glad we became friends.
Yeah.
I love you, and thanks
I
for
love,
having me on.
I love you, and I love Laura, and I love Meadow, and I'm glad you all are here. Stay here as long as you can take it.
Yeah, no, we still like it. We love it.
Okay. Good to know. And thanks, everybody. Have a great time off from work, and celebrate whatever you're celebrating. Okay. Bye-bye.